Everybody, this is Jess with Cosplay for Christ. I have Patrick Aleen of PR Aleen Creative. He is a pastor, an apologist, he's a fantasy author, and he is a convention owner. Patrick, thank you for coming on the show today. How are you?
Um, Other than recovering from shoulder surgery, I am very blessed and I'm thankful to be here.
Oh my goodness. So what, did you just throw in too many baseballs, or did you
I
tackle
wish.
someone?
I did play a lot of baseball when I was younger, but my injury I sustained during my time in the military. So I spent
Oh.
20 plus years in the military and doing a lot of push-ups and pushing other things around. It just eventually just deteriorated and finally had to have the surgery.
My goodness. Well, thank you for your service and all that you do for our freedom. So thank you for serving us
No, it was my pleasure.
and now serving the community through being a pastor and all the other things you do. So can you tell, for those that don't know who you are, a little of your background? How did Patrick Aleen come to be who you are now?
Yeah, all the bumps and potholes along the way.
Right, right.
So I grew up in Louisiana. Thought I was going to live the rest of my life in Louisiana, but after a failed attempt at college, I decided to join the military, and then eventually just moved to the Virginia area, and was just enjoying being in the military and got out of active duty and immediately jumped into the National Guard. That's where everything kind of started to happen for me in the realm of Christianity.
Hmm.
So, I mean, I did the VBS when I was a kid. I went to church with my grandmother when she would, snatch me away from my parents just to go to church. And eventually, with sports and everything, just kind of got pulled down the rabbit hole of kind of just trying to do things on my own. But after joining the National Guard, I deployed a couple times to the Middle East for combat operations, and it was after my second deployment when I came back after becoming a father that I really felt the Lord calling me home to Him. So I started basically doing research on my own, and actually avoided the church at first because I'd heard all kind of stories and the hypocrites and all this other stuff, that the stereotypes that people throw shade at the church, if you will. Um, so I actually just poured myself into running because I was a cross country runner when I was in high school and in college, the first go around. But I just poured myself into running and pushing myself as hard as I could. I was training for ultra marathons, training for marathons, and would pray along the way because I felt like if I put myself in enough discomfort, somehow I would hear God. And ultimately, while I was training, my wife, who was raised Catholic, started going to a church. It was actually a vineyard church at the time. I was like, you know what? I've never heard of a vineyard church. So I'm going to go and make sure she's not in some type of cult or something. So I started attending with her because Sundays were my long run day. So I was like, I need to protect my wife and my two daughters at that point. So I started attending with her. Within a few weeks, the pastor went on vacation, and then the worship band drummer, who communicated the gospel in a way I'd never heard it before, with power and conviction, and it was nothing but the Holy Spirit in that moment, and I surrendered to Christ that day. And then from that point on, it was just a whirlwind. I started reading the Bible like it was like I was breathing air. Everywhere I went, I had a small New Testament with me, and I just wanted to know more and more about Jesus. Eventually, I started doing men's ministry for that church. But eventually, I started working a full-time job in Washington, D.C. And on the train, I would sit there and just read and pray because I would find a nice, quiet spot, read and pray. And occasionally, I would fall asleep. And on one occasion, this is kind of a moment for me where I was like shaken awake, so to speak. Very supernatural moment where I was sitting on the train. I had just gotten done reading. I think I was in Mark. I had read the Bible several times at that point, but I was trying to get through Mark, and I was doing some notes and everything. So I fell asleep on the train, and I had this moment where I knew I was asleep, and then all of a sudden a face appears in mine and it's like, wake up. And it was like a face of light, and the voice was like everything you describe in a New Testament story where
Like a
you hear about
vision.
Jesus being a
Yeah.
voice
Yeah.
of many waters and thunders. It scared me, but at the same
Mm.
time, it comforted me. And then within a few days of that experience, my supervisor was like, "Look, hey, I think you need to be a pastor." And I was like, "What?" He said, you're called to be a pastor. I know it. He said, I've had 3 dreams this week just on you preaching the gospel."
Holy
And I was like,
cow.
"Are you serious?" And so I was like, "Let me pray about it." So I started praying about it, and then I was like, "Well, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I probably need to get training." So all my military buddies were like, "Go through Liberty University. It's where I'm wearing the hat right now. They're very, veteran friendly, and they give you discounts." And I was like, "Okay, great." So I had to finish my bachelor's degree. I didn't jump right into seminary. So I called them, and this is another miraculous moment for me that solidified that I knew I needed to be a pastor. Um, I called them and said, "Hey, I started trying to do registration and everything." And then they were like, "Oh, it looks like you owe a balance to your previous university." And I was like, "Oh, well, do you know how much it is?" They said it was this much. And I was like, "I can't afford that right now." I was like, "So I'll work on paying that off, and then I will register next semester." And so I started the process. I contacted the school, and the school was like, "You need to contact Liberty back." And I was like, "Okay." So I called Liberty University back. I was talking to somebody in the registrar's office, and they were like, um, "Yeah, we'll give you a call next week to let you know what's going on." And so I was like, "Okay, whatever." So I just went about my business, and the very next day, I got a call from the student advisor, and he told me, he said, "How come you haven't registered for classes?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, "You told me I couldn't register for classes until next semester after I paid off this debt." And he said, "The debt was paid off. You can register for
What?
classes right now." And I was like, "Who did it?" He was like, "I don't know. I just was told it was paid off."
Wow.
So I was like, "Okay." So I guess I'm gonna start the path of learning to be a pastor.
God's like, no
So
obstacles, straight
no
path.
obstacles. I know
Go.
it was incredible, and it was a huge sign for me. And um, so I jumped into that as a youth pastor at first, while studying at the same time, and then
Did you stay at
eventually.
your vineyard church?
No, actually, no. We actually moved on to a really small Baptist church that
Okay.
was a real small, and they had a bunch of kids, which was surprising for such a small little country church. And I was like, "Hey, do you need a youth pastor?" And they're like, "Let's
Hmm.
talk." And then so I just kind of was volunteering until it became official, and I became the youth pastor there.
Nice.
And I kind of got into church planning, um, which I really had a heart for, but nothing, the doors never opened for me to do that. So,
Hmm.
but then when I started um, doing a little bit more studying, I really felt pulled to apologetics.
Hmm.
And about a fact, I got handed a small booklet, and I don't even remember who wrote it. I just remember I was like, "What is apologetics?" And I started reading, and I was like, "Well, I like that a lot."
Oh,
um,
okay. What is
yeah.
apologetics for those that don't know? And for stupid me, then I'm like, I think I know, but
So
maybe.
yeah, great question. Because a lot of churchgoers, especially if you're in a smaller town or if you're just not on the internet these days, don't know what apologetics is. And matter of fact, at the church I'm currently pastoring, it was that way because I was like, "Hey, I want to do a series on apologetics before Easter so that you guys can, be able to learn to answer hard questions." And that's ultimately what apologetics is. It's making a defense, a reasoned defense for the faith. I mean, there's Muslim apologists, or there's apologists for different things. It just means to make a defense. So for Christian apologetics, it's to make a reasoned defense for the faith that we have, and that's commanded for us to do in 1 Peter 3:15, where Peter tells us to always be ready to make a defense, but to do so with compassion and so it's not necessarily trying to argue people into the kingdom, although some people, especially on the collegiate level or the PhD level, they will go and do debates with popular atheists and whatnot, to offer a reasoned defense, and they will offer reasoned arguments and then engage in dismantling the arguments of the person they're having the discussion with. I wanted to do it at the church level where I was teaching people how to have hard conversations because as a youth pastor, 80% of my time dealing with them was answering questions.
Hmm.
And it was usually questions that fell into the realm of apologetics. Um, Things like if the problem of evil, if God exists, why is there so much evil in the world, or pain, or hate, or any of these things? So I almost was drawn into that just by
What
being a
would your
youth pastor.
what would your answer be to that question? Because that is very much, I see that repeated multiple times. Like anytime I get on social media, it feels like someone's addressing that same question.
Yeah, it is probably the most popular pushback when you start talking to somebody about God. I believe it was William Lane Craig, who is an apologist, said that he could actually build a list of about 30 questions that are like the popular hits or the frequently asked questions. And he says it doesn't matter what university you go to; it could be overseas, it could be in in the United States. These questions are going to come up, so you need to be ready to answer them. And that's probably the number one: is if God is so good and He exists, then why is there so much evil in the world? I always answer it by saying that when God created us, He didn't want to make us robots. And I play it off of how C.S. Lewis paints the picture, where he says that when God created, he didn't want to create what he called automatons, um, things that have to do your will without question, like a robot. When you program a robot, it has to do what it tells you or what you tell it to do. So, in order for God to receive worship, in order for God to create creatures that would love him, he had to give us free will. So, in the process of that, if you have free will, then you have the freedom to do evil, but you also have the freedom to choose to love.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that process, we cannot have true love, whether it be between a husband and a wife, a father and a child, or between creation and the creator, if we don't have free will.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's almost like God knew that this was going to be a problem, yet he still created it because he wanted us to know him and to love him of our own free will. One of the ways
Yeah.
I used to tell uh, students in the youth group was that if you have a free will, you can choose to do whatever you want with it. You can choose to do evil or you can choose to do good, but you have to live with the consequences of that. And to reject Christ is you taking that free will that was given to you for the purpose of loving him freely and abusing that gift that we've been given. Um, and I wanted to be able to get back onto my point. I wanted to be able to get folks comfortable with having conversations like that. And the first thing you have to do is entertain questions.
Yeah.
And I tell folks, if you're going to do evangelism, if you're going to do discipleship, if you're going to do anything, whether it be outward from the church or inward in the church, you better be ready for questions. So I literally, when we do VBS, every year I do a parents class, and it's literally just questions and answers. I don't teach anything. I just say, okay, bring your notebooks with all your questions, and let's go through them.
I love
And
that. I love
oftentimes we
that.
have more parents show up than kids
Well,
because of it.
Patrick, I think it's because we are been told to just listen and just listen and repeat what we say instead of when someone asks a hard question, a lot of times it feels like the person that you're asking either doesn't know the answer or just shuts it down. And so many people have been conditioned to just do what we say and that's it. And
Yeah,
when people have hard questions to ask, it almost feels like someone is hiding something from them or they don't want them to know something. I'm like, I love questions. I think
yeah,
questions are wonderful. Even if I don't know the answer to them, I'm like, I will try to figure that out. I don't know. But I think especially with the youth today, I heard a statistic and I don't know what it is because I'm not even going to attempt to try it. But a lot of Christian children, teenagers that get into college leave the faith because they basically could not defend what they believed.
right.
And
Absolutely. And
and
you're spot on. You're
and
spot
that
on.
so that I see such an importance for people like you and who are able to like bring in the questions and allow a safe environment for people to ask questions without having like a judgment on them for asking that question.
Right. Right. And that's where I started getting into the area of storytelling.
Hmm.
Um, because I read a quote by, I think it was C.S. Lewis, where it says that um, in order for us to get our arguments past, and I'm paraphrasing here, I'm not going to quote this verbatim, but in order for us to get our arguments for Christ past their watchful dragons, we need to engage with the imagination.
Hmm.
And matter of fact, I did my master's thesis on that, is imagination as an apologetic. And I started writing. I wanted to write a story because I have 3 daughters, and they love fantasy.
Same. I have 3
And
daughters.
that kind of comes from me because, one of the first things they watched was The Lord of the Rings. I mean, I have a whole shelf over
Let's
this
go.
shoulder right here. It's all Lord
That's
of the
awesome.
Rings,
Yes.
Middle Earth stuff.
Love it.
My first cosplay, see this helmet behind my head?
Yes,
it is
Rohirrim. Or is
it's
it
a mashup
Gondor?
between,
Is that Gondor or is that Rohirrim?
So it's Gondor.
Gondor. Okay, I
but-
see the feathers now.
Yeah, and so I did a
Nice.
mashup between the Mandalorian and Gondor.
Hey,
And
I got
so I
Mando
called
on.
it yeah, there you go. Right
Hey.
on. So I called it the Gondalorian. And
I love that. I love
so
that.
the host of Nerd of the Rings, I don't know if you know that channel.
I sure don't, but now I do.
Nerd of the Rings. He has a ton of deep dive. Just, I mean, now that you know it, you're not going to stop watching it. He has wonderful content. But he went to San Diego Comic-Con as the Gondalorian, and at the same time, I was here in Fredericksburg at what we call FredCon, a local little convention. We're in the same thing, competing in a cosplay contest. And so I sent him pictures. He was like, "Oh man, I 3D printed everything." I was like, "Well, I wish I had a 3D printer because I spent like weeks making this thing out of foam."
Gosh.
But
foam is more durable though. That you could throw foam and it won't break.
Exactly.
If you don't finish your 3D print, it's gonna crack. So
exactly.
You're better.
It may look
You're
cool,
better for
but
it.
it's not gonna last.
Right.
Yeah. But that's a whole nother story with the whole
yeah.
cosplay
So
thing,
okay. So the
Yeah, go ahead.
apologetics led you to be more into fantasy, to be telling stories through fantasy. So you wrote this fantasy trilogy, and
Yep.
I actually just bought your first book. So because
thank you.
I have 3 girls too, and I'm always looking for content that is appropriate for them, because my youngest is 6, my oldest is 15. Yes. And so I'm always on search for stuff that I can enjoy reading, but then they actually like it too,
Oh,
so
yeah.
tell us, is it Ceylon? Is
Nope.
that, nope.
It's the Kalon cycle.
Kalon. Okay.
Yeah. Let's I started writing this story for my daughters. The first book is called The Daughters 3, and it's very reminiscent of Narnia, and very love lettery to kind of like Middle Earth. In a way, it's almost like, have you seen the Wayfinder series?
Yes, we love it. We're
so
waiting for season 2 to come out. We're like,
if
come
you
on.
like that, you'll love these. You'll love
Okay.
these because it's very similar in how they get to the magical realm.
Cool.
And I don't want to give too much away, but dad's taking the daughters to school, and something happens, and then they wake up in this magical realm called Idir. So some of the naming conventions throughout the book, it's all Old Gaelic, or what we call Irish in the United States. So even the word Idir, it just means between. So it's the Idirian realm. So it's the realm between, like heaven and earth, so to speak.
That's cool.
And another fun fact about the whole, I'm getting ready to write a prequel to it, kind of like a lore-based thing, on how the creatures in Idir got there. Because as you read through this, you're going to learn that these creatures once were in our realm. And then God protected them. The Maker protected them by giving them their own space before the time, because we were getting pretty violent as human beings go. The first book was a love story to my daughters, but the entire theme of the book is to use the gifts God gives you for good, and knowing that you can use those gifts in one of 2 directions, either for good or for evil. And they learn as they go through this process of trying to find their father, trying to help the people of the realm, the faithful Idirians. And there's a whole, Dark Lord and the group. I don't know if your daughters read through it at any point, but I kind of use a word from Tolkien's Magisterium of he created a word for goblins called orc.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what the orcs are,
Yeah.
they're the bad guys. They're the bad minions for whatever Dark Lord is going on. Well, he pulled that word from an old English word, olc, OLC, and so I used that instead of the word that Tolkien used, so that you kind of know what it is, but now you're getting
Yeah.
the ancient word that he was playing on.
Yeah.
It's just harder to say olc
Yeah.
than orc.
Yeah.
But throughout the book, matter of fact, the book 3 I just finished just before Christmas of last year, and it's the bigger of the 3. But it took me 3 years to write this series, and I'm gonna start the 4th book, but it's gonna be a prequel. I'm gonna start it here soon. But
What was your goal for writing those books?
to give something to my daughters that they can use in the future for their children. Because Tolkien said the best way to teach good morals is through a good fairy story.
Hmm.
And
what
so
is
I started. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, what's the age range that you would consider for those books?
9 to 99.
Okay.
I have
Great.
folks in their 70s that love my book, and I have kids that are 9 years old. They're just as soon as they get it, they pour through it, and I'm like, maybe I have to turn this into a longer series. But it's been a blessing. I've had a lot of great conversations with folks at conventions. I sold a bunch. We had a convention here in town called Kids Fest, and it's huge. And
I think I
folks
saw a
would come up
video
and
of you
yeah,
promoting
exactly.
it.
Yeah. It was a huge facility. Matter of fact, the convention that I'm doing is only going to be half that size. It's this book has allowed me to have really good conversations with folks. And it's not a Christian allegory. It's Christians that are pulled into this realm.
Yeah.
For a purpose. So it's not like, oh, this person represents, like, the lion is the lion Jesus, like
Yeah.
from Narnia.
Yeah.
Or Aragorn is the return of the king. It's like the return of Christ. It's not that. It's not that. It's literally a theme, how to use your gifts through no matter what circumstance you're in, and how to use it to help people.
How has those books cultivated conversations about Christ when you're at conventions? How does that flow go with
Well,
people?
usually when they find out that it's Christian fantasy, that's the first thing they ask. Is it going to be like forced down your throat type of thing? And I'm like, no. I was like, it's not that. I say, what it ultimately does is it opens up the thought process that there is a creator, and that he loves us, and that he is he's for us. Because as they go through the book, the journey through the book, they get bits of guidance and help. And there's kind of a Gandalf type figure who doesn't do too much. His name is Aldo. Conversationally, it helps me to talk to people about teaching their kids right from wrong, teaching their kids how to struggle well, and how to lean on the gifts God has given us, the Maker has given us. But it does help when folks come up to me and are like, Christian fantasy. What? I didn't think Christians could read that stuff and all. When you have to tell them, like, oh, Tolkien was Catholic and C.S. Lewis was a Christian, and George MacDonald, who they use as inspiration, he was a pastor. I was like, so fantasy is like it's the realm of Christianity, and it is something that through my writing, which I didn't set out to do, through my writing and through engaging with others, Christ-centered folks like yourself, through other writers, and through conventions, that we can take back stuff like that. And I was actually inspired to really shift gears into that type of thing from the lead singer of Skillet, the band Skillet.
I love Skillet.
When he said,
Skillet.
we exist to take rock and roll back for the king. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that too.
Amen.
I'm going to do that too. So I'm going to write as much as the Lord lets me, and use it for his glory. And that leads kind of to the idea of the convention.
Yeah. So I love that God is using you. It started with getting your foundation solid with, just your salvation, then okay, pastoring, and then leading to apologetics, and then wanting to, with your kids and inspiring them, and like build. It's like you're building and building and building your house on this solid foundation, it feels like.
Right.
And I love seeing you and then these other Christian creators that are doing what God is calling them to do in these venues, because I feel like the more that we invade the system, I hate to use that word, but I mean, it's kind of a militaristic in what we do. Like we're
Oh yeah.
purposeful. We're trying to I always say, take ground for the kingdom. Like there's
Yeah.
things that have been given to other realms and other kingdoms, and we need to take it back as Christian creators, authors, filmmakers, convention owners, cosplayers. It is
Oh
so
yeah.
important that the lane that God put us in, that we are doing what God's called us to do. Because like, one, it's hard, but was it Elisha, where they're like, there are many with us, the
Yeah.
more that we are able to walk in the bigger influence that we can have in the creative industry, especially in the creative nerd industry,
Oh yeah.
that is very much, it's very secular,
Oh,
but
it's easy to talk to nerds and geeks because most of the stories they read have gods in it. They
yeah,
have supernatural supernatural things, and there's a supernatural realm in a lot of these genres, whether it be Star Wars or sci-fi or fantasy,
yeah,
or even in the Warhammer type. It's realm of influence. There's gods in these, and and I think it was so C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. C.S. Lewis was an atheist. Then he slowly but surely became an agnostic, and they were both into myths, like especially like Beowulf and the Arthurian myths and things of that nature. And so Tolkien used that to communicate the gospel to C.S. Lewis in a way that finally clicked.
yeah,
He got around his watchful dragons, and when he told him like yes, that all these myths are kind of they kind of sound alike, but Christianity is the only true myth. Christianity is the only myth where where the God of Christianity, the God of Judaism, came into our world and actually did what we read, what you call the myth of the Bible. He actually did it, and
yeah.
there's evidence for it, and that led C.S. Lewis to really evaluate and be like, yeah, he's right. And he goes on to be one of the greatest defenders of the faith that we've ever seen. Um, so there's something to that, and the
So
whole idea of the convention.
yeah, I was
Um,
gonna say, so the convention. So is this gonna be your first year at the doing
yes,
this convention? So
yes,
tell
I
tell
have
tell my
done.
listeners all about it.
Yeah. So let me tell you the backstory, and then we'll jump into that. So the biggest convention, we have two really big conventions around here. I'm on the East Coast in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We have Awesome Con in DC, which is like in 2 weeks. And then we have Galaxy Con in Richmond. And, we would take our kids every year, but we would have to really be careful because we have little girls and they're impressionable. And there's a lot of folks running around half naked half the time. And then you look at the event, the billing, and it's like, oh, it's family friendly, and it's not
Uh,
family friendly
yeah,
at all. And your daughters would go up and they would like, talk to vendors, and the vendors are like, "Oh, you'll love this book," and you read the back of the book, and you're like, "My kid is not reading this book.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm not going to do this." Um, so they were really abusing the idea of family friendly or kid friendly, so to speak. And I don't want parents, especially Christian parents, to be like, no, you can't read fantasy or you can't read this because it's evil,
yeah,
right? Or it goes against our values or our beliefs as Christians. When in reality, the fantasy genre was founded by Christian men and expanded by Christian women, um, and it's a bit of territory, like you said, that we have to take back for the King of
yeah,
Kings.
yeah.
And the conventions is just another thing that I just look at, and I'm like, I don't feel comfortable going to Awesome Con and setting up. and, setting up a booth. And I will, but at the same time, I probably won't be as impactful as I could.
Yeah.
Um, and I have set up in, let's see, I did the Richmond Comic Con and had the books out and had a couple conversations. Sold 0 books. I thought about just giving some away, but by that point, the convention had started dwindling down.
It's important though to have to so like as a parent of also 3
Yeah.
girls, it's like we had to make a decision for what they can and cannot go to do, because
Right.
when I go into a convention, it's not just to go and have fun. I'm there on purpose, on mission.
Right.
And I've had booths at conventions before, and none of them Christian, all secular, and the girls never came with me for booths. But when we would go, like as a group, we finally got to the point where like, we really have to be specific with what we take them to, because the things they were being exposed to was not good
Right.
for their development. And as a parent, we have to be like, no, like when you're talking about kid friendly, I think the definition that people use for kid friendly varies. Like, what is your definition of kid friendly? Like, their definition is probably not the same as my definition of kid
Right.
friendly. And so events, there's such a need for when we talk about safe spaces or safe environments for people, we assume it's this one idea that is being promoted. But in reality, like a safe place is where kids are not exposed to things that could scare them or lead them to a sexual thing that is like, hey, they're
Right.
kids, they're not sexual, right?
Exactly.
Let them be kids, And so it is such a great need right now, because you go in with kids and it's not, it's very hard to find actual family friendly
Oh yeah.
events that held to that standard, that they're not going to expose. Because here in this area, unfortunately, what I find is a lot of people really enjoy scaring kids. That's like, they get
Yeah.
joy out of scaring kids. And I'm like, not for it. That's actually why we took the kids out of conventions locally. But I'm glad to see that there are people rising up. There's one local Narnia fair that they're actually, it is kid friendly, truly. And
I've heard about that one. Yeah.
it's run by Christians. And so I'm like, well, then that's, for me, that's an actual safe environment for my kids to
Right.
be in, and we're gladly going to go. So your convention absolutely 100% is needed. It's important for us as adults to still go into the secular spaces and
Oh yes.
represent, but there's a point where we have to know what is good and bad for our kids to include them or not include them in it.
Right.
So it's nice to have another option for the kids to be able to still experience Comic-Con, but it's actually truly safe for them.
Exactly. Yeah, because Comic Con became really um it's overtly adult these days. And so this idea of the Mid-Atlantic Fantasy Convention started off small, and then I just had this thought. I was like, it can't just be small, because it has to be impactful from Jump Street. Because if I don't feel it's being impactful, if I don't have parents coming up to me saying, like you said, this is needed. My kids like doing, dressing up as their favorite fantasy, folks and, characters. I want to go to a space where, my kids can pick up any book there, and it's not going to, affect, their worldview, because kids don't know how to defend the faith yet. They don't know how to defend it. They just know how to love people, because that's what we teach them early on. It's just, you need to love everybody, even your enemies. You need to love them, you need to shine the light, but we don't teach them early on how to be defenders of the faith. And when we put them in situations, I think it was Vodi Bakum says, he was talking about public school. He's like, don't be surprised when you send your kids to Caesar and they don't come back as Romans, so I wanted to have an impactful event that is a space not only for families to bring their kids, but also for Christian, creators to be able to come together. We can network. We can, behind the scenes, we could plan other things. I'm doing a collaboration with Dex, the nerd who loves Jesus.
Yeah, I love Dex.
Yeah, he's great. And then out of the blue, I had a voice actor contact me. He says, "Hey, what's this about?" He does, I think it was like orc voices, and he is absolutely wonderful. He is a wonderful voice actor. He's coming. I told him, look, I'll give you a booth for free if you just want to come. He's coming from Tampa, Florida. He was like, yeah, let me know anything else I can do to make your event successful. I was like, really?
Oh, wow.
Just
wow.
a huge huge opportunity for him to come in. And he does like video game voices, and he does voiceovers. He actually does audiobooks and things like that. And he's done some audio reading of the segments of the Bible as well. So I don't know if he's a Christian, but he's definitely going to get a face full of it when he comes up. Um,
You should try to get Kevin Sorbo on because
I was actually trying to go to his convention. So he has one in Tennessee, Rise Up Con. It is hard to get into. It is really hard to get into, and it's in April. I'm actually still fighting to try and get into that one. I'm on a waiting list. But yeah, I definitely want to have some more actors, Christian actors, cosplayers, so that kids can see that, hey, we can actually do this, and we can do it for Jesus.
Right. I wish we could make it this year. I'm like,
well, it's okay. Next year.
So sad.
No, it's all right. Next year, you guys are coming.
Okay. I'm telling my husband, like, we're going to make the date work.
Absolutely. We're going to try and keep it in the summer, just because it's, folks who do come, they can make it a little bit of a vacation. Because I don't know if you know about Fredericksburg, but it's like American history, all the way through. George Washington's birthplace and everything is out here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
Yes,
so
indeed.
getting back to the conventions. So you felt this need, you see that there's this need for a family friendly event. And so what was like, I'm going to do a convention myself. What was that process?
So when I wrote the books, I was trying to figure out how to turn this into a bigger business model, something that would be more impactful than just books. So I don't plan on stopping writing. But so I was like, well, I'll start a kind of a creative business. That's our PR Aleen Creative is it's the pseudonym I write for, but it's just my initials and my last name. So I started PR Aleen Creative with the idea of not only do the books, but also cover art, posters, and stickers and things like that. Eventually, we'll get into like little collectibles and stuff that are kind of like, that kind of go along with the book series. But I was like, the biggest thing we could do is have events. And I was like, well, what kind of events? So I was like, well, conventions, that's number one. That's the big one. It's not only is it impactful, but it also produces a decent enough revenue, even if you have a small one, where you could actually use that to fund other projects. So the idea was to have our first event this year being the convention, the Mid-Atlantic Fantasy Convention, or we call it MAFCON, because every convention has to have a cheeky name, easy to remember.
Yeah.
But so we set out, we didn't want to call it the Fredericksburg Fantasy Convention because we want people to think of it as a regional event, but eventually we want it to be like the premier fantasy convention at a minimum on the East Coast. And so we planned this out, and we're kind of funding it ourselves. And, some people were coming out of the kindness of their hearts. And then we eventually want to do more events. We want to have, we're going to try around Christmas time to have a winter fantasy ball for families. Because again, fantasy balls, when you think about them, they tend to be very adult and very Bridgerton, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. I want families to come. I want kids to come, homeschool groups, families. So it would be almost like their prom, but it's very fantasy focused, and it'll be
more Pride and Prejudice.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then, but also have books there, vendors there to sell books and to have art and stuff like that. So it'd be like a mini convention, but everybody's dressing up.
Yeah. Love it.
And then eventually we want to do a sci-fi convention. So this is phase one. This is the first year we're doing MAFCON. We want to try and do a sci-fi convention at some point, probably next year, if the Lord's willing, and then we'll go from there. But we also have a media wing that we have a YouTube channel right now. We have a couple things up there, not a lot. I did a video essay of my master's thesis on using imagination as an apologetic, which is like a 4-part video series I did there. And then I do a couple reviews there, but eventually I'm going to start a podcast on there. But ultimately, we want to grow it to the point where we're teaming up with folks like Brainy Pixel or Angel Studios and bringing some of these stories to life, but also helping other creators do the same thing. so that we're getting more. Now we're getting not only people are reading stuff, but also can see it. They can watch it, whether it be a YouTube channel with a series on it, or another type of platform where we can have family-friendly content that is faith-based, that promotes the gospel and teaches all the things that, because if you think about when you go to Sunday school as a kid, it's typically, and as you get becoming a parent, you're like, oh, same old stories. Yep. Noah's Ark, probably didn't look like that. And this, and we try to teach the kids, the good morals they're supposed to have, and how to live as a Christian through those stories, as best we can. Why can't we have other stories that point you to those stories, that emphasizes the lessons in characters these kids might actually love? That it's a new adventure, or it's a this, or it's a that. Oh, it's like this. It's like the Book of Job, but it's like in a kid-friendly format. So I think there's a lot of creators out there that are doing that, like Brandon with Brainy Pixel, and the folks that you have the Chosen series and stuff like that. And those are all wonderful, and they're really making an impact. But
No,
what
they're
happens when
good.
everybody have seen all those?
They're good quality too, and I think
Oh,
that's something
yes.
that is needed. I've 80s, 90s, I've probably consumed almost all the Christian content
Mm-hmm.
created in those eras, and
Oh, yes.
even 2000s, and I'm like, can we be as quality as the world, but with the Christian content? And I
Yeah,
feel
or
like,
better.
or better, can we like surpass in this area? Because I feel like so much, I don't know, sometimes people just slap something with a Christian name on it and it's not done well. And I'm like, this is not
Yeah.
like, maybe it was your best and I don't want to judge in that way. And God can use anything, but I'm like, something about excellence that I'm like, hey guys, let's do our best, but like, let it be excellent. And so that others
Yeah.
can be like, God is glorified because of your excellence in your
Mm-hmm.
product that you're bringing out to people. So I feel like there's a very much a big need for that in our
Oh, yes.
areas.
Absolutely. And we're even though you did have some good stuff in the 90s, Veggie Tales, you had um, the Odyssey series and stuff like that. That
Superbook. I love
Yeah,
Superbook personally. That was like,
Superbook's great. Yeah,
I love
absolutely,
Superbook.
absolutely. And then you have like the comic book Bible. These are all wonderful things.
Sergio, amazing
Yep,
person, artist, like
exactly.
the pioneer of all that stuff. I love that.
Exactly. But you don't stop at the pioneers. We
I
take what
know,
they've
you need
built on.
more. You need
Exactly.
more.
And so that's
We need
kind
to
of what
saturate.
exactly. Exactly. And if you can make it great, if you make it, I'm reminded of Oswald Chambers, his devotional, "My utmost for his highest." And I'm just like, if we can do
I
that in
have that.
everything,
Yeah.
then we're winning for the kingdom, And so that's kind
Amen.
of where I want to
Absolutely.
be. That's kind of where the writing led to the apologetics, led to the writing, led to the convention, and then eventually, hopefully soon, we'll be able to grow it to where it's even more impactful. However, as big as God wants it to be.
Right. That's so good. That's so good. So what do you plans going back to the convention, what can people expect to do or what to experience when they're there?
Right. So
And also
we
the
want.
dates.
Oh, yeah. So the date is June 20th, 2026 this year. It's going to be on a Saturday. It's right in the heart of Fredericksburg, Virginia, which is especially during the summer, it's a huge touristy town. We just got a huge new indoor water park resort. There's a NASCAR track here. There's a ton of stuff to do here. The baseball team stadium is right next to the convention center, and there's a game that night. So we're trying to partner with them now to do some type of partnership with them leading up to the convention. We want everybody to dress up, even vendors to dress up. We want it to be fully immersive. And we're encouraging the vendors. So there's obviously going to be vendors. We're encouraging the vendors to dress up because we're going to have folks vote on who's the best dressed vendors. We're going to have the convention attendees will vote, we'll have a little card, and they'll come in and be like, oh, this one was the absolute best. And then they'll actually win a cash prize. So
Nice.
they won't even know they're in the cosplay contest, but they're actually going to win a cash prize for best dressed vendor. And they'll get a photo package as well. So obviously we're going to have a cosplay contest. We're going to have an adult cosplay contest, a kids, and a group. So like families, if they want to dress up, or, work groups or ministry teams, and all of those are cash prize. And they get a professional cosplay photography session, which we have one of probably the best cosplay photographers I've ever seen. And he's fantastic. He lives here in Fredericksburg, and he's sponsoring the cosplay contest. So
His name?
Bryant Cox. He's Bryant Cox Photography. You can probably see his stuff on. I share a lot of his stuff. But he'll be here. He's probably going to be our cosplay photographer forever, as long as we're around. Because he lives close by here, and he was like, "Oh yeah, if it's local, absolutely, I'm in." And he's great. He did my daughter's photo shoot when she dressed up as Black Widow. She's red hair, so she was like, "I want to dress up as Black Widow," so I helped her build a cosplay, the backpack and the wands and everything. And it was fantastic. I was like, this guy is great. Give me your card. This was several years ago. But he's great. So he's doing that. But then we're also going to have what's called Little Knights Academy and a Princess Parlor. Because we want to give them space to come and learn how to be a knight. So they learn a little saying, and it's going to be very biblically based, saying about how being a good person, a good man, so we're trying to build something there. But they're also gonna they'll have like a little tunic that they throw over a shield and a sword. Not real, but they'll learn like a couple things, and then shield up, slash and stuff like that. But then we're going to have them do what's called a court parade, where the Princess Parlor and the Knights parade through the convention center, led by the knight leader. And then there'll be we have a little dragon mascot that my daughter's dressing up as. And they're going to go through the convention, and they're going to come to the main stage, where we're going to have a king, and there's going to be a castle facade on the stage, and he's going to knight the knights, and he's going to crown the princesses. And but the knights actually have to defend the princesses in that moment, because we're going to have a spoiler alert, we're going to have a dragon, an animatronic dragon that's kind of wheeled out, and they just have to scare the dragon away. And it's going to be a blast. It's going to be absolutely awesome.
My gosh, the kids are going to love that.
Disney in this regard, because they have at Disney World, you have like the Jedi trials. So it's ultimately that fantasy based, and it's going to be great. We're gonna have a couple sessions. We have 2 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon before the convention closes. So there'll be optimum amounts of slots for kids to fill, and they can prepay for that when they buy their tickets. So when the family buys their tickets, they can get that option for their kid, because it'll be cheaper to buy it at the that way than at the table. Because we also don't know if we'll have enough seats, because we only have like 20 nights per session, and we're doing 4 sessions. Hopefully we'll have, I'll definitely squeeze more kids in if we can, but we'll see. But then we're also going to have a lot of, like I said, a lot of vendors. We were trying to get a lot of fantasy vendors. I'm struggling trying to find like fancy clothing companies that are willing to come, because summertime's really busy.
Yes.
For these groups. But we have a LARP guild that's coming. They're going to do some LARP demonstrations. And they're all going to be as part of the experience, walking around in character. The Renaissance Fair, the Virginia Renaissance Fair, is actually held here the month before, so we're going to have a bunch of them come in costume.
Nice.
Yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome.
Will you guys have any kind of panels besides the night training and the princess?
So, I'm trying to get a couple more Christian authors, because I want to have a Christian fantasy author panel. I have at least one right now. So it'll be me and somebody else, but I'm leading the conversation. And then I'm going to have a conversation with any of the voice actors that come up. So it'll be a voice actors panel. And right now I just have one. So if you know anybody, send them my way. I will cover the cost of their booth just so that they can come and experience it and maybe grow their brand.
That's good.
Um,
If you have
and
a
then
can people submit panel submissions? Like, are they able to suggest and ask request for a panel?
sure, sure. I would say yes. Depends on if my budget can sustain it. 'Cause like I said, I'm doing this out of my own pocket, at least this first year. I would love to have more panel suggestions. Um, Cosplayers, why people come and why do you do cosplay for Christ? Why do you cosplay as a Christian and be overtly Christian about it?
Yeah.
That'd be great. And then we're gonna have at least myself. I'm gonna do a scene read from one of my books, which I might actually have one of the voice actors help me in that,
Ooh.
uh, just because I have a scene I think it's in book 2, where there's a conversation between one character and an Ulk. So I would be like, "Hey, you read the Ulk part, I'll read this part." And it's really great scene.
That would be
It's the
cool.
scene where I stopped writing that night. I was like, "I don't know if I can do any better than this." Uh, but it was so there'll be a reading. I'm trying to get like a Christian magician to come, and then let's see, the magician, the knights, the princesses, a couple of the panels. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. 'Cause it's not very long. It's only from like
Okay.
10 to 5.
Is there anything that you're still needing that you would like to kind of put out to the public? Hey,
Uh,
I still need this, or
Vendors, yeah, I need
yeah.
vendors. I mean, we have a lot of time between now and then, but um, once it starts to fill up, it'll fill up quick because I'm only going to have about 114 vendor slots. It's starting off slow because it's a new convention, so people are asking questions. But I'm starting to get buy into it. So, and I'm also not trying to have like 1,000 3D printers and 1,000 crochet artists and all that stuff. So I'm trying to keep. I'm very selective with who can come into the convention
Yeah.
as a vendor. I've already had to turn one fantasy author away because they said they were a clean fantasy author, but then she said her book on her website was like, out of 4 jalapenos, hers is 3 on the spicy scale. And I'm like, yeah, it's not going to work here. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I've got to let her know, because I just reviewed it. But then there's, any type of vendors welcome. If you're coming and you don't sell something that's like fantasy or Christian based, that's fine. Just keep it family friendly and dress up in a costume. And we're going to try and do some simple cosplay tutorials on like how can I dress up my booth as a fantasy type, Ren Fair type booth. So we'll do a couple ideas, share those on the Instagram and stuff like that. So it's cheap and easy, um, but just kind of sharing ideas with vendors and stuff like that. But then, like I said, we have the cosplay contests. A lot of vendors. I do have a young lady who I've known for a couple years. I've met her at the farmers market. She plays harp. She plays violin. She plays flute, and there's like 2 other instruments she plays. And you could walk up to her and say, "Can you play the Ride of the Rohirrim, Howard Shore?" She could do it. Can you play the Shire theme? You can do it on the spot. She's like, I know how to play all of those. I was like, that's wonderful. You're coming. So, I'll
Done.
definitely have her
Score.
there. She's
Very cool.
so I have to go through her parents because she's not 18 yet, or she might be about to turn 18, but their summer schedule. They're supposed to be getting back in touch with me. Let me know. Um, but yeah, anybody can reach out to me with ideas, or if they want to come be a vendor, um, maybe I can give them a discount on a booth or help them with hotel discounts and stuff like that. I'm supposed to be getting my group discount rate from the hotel
Great.
right next to the convention center soon. So, but I'll
Great.
be able to share that with folks if they're traveling.
Awesome. 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 Very cool. Well, what is the website that they can buy tickets at or submit for a vendor or panel or any of that stuff?
Yeah. So it is. Oh, so it's if you Google the Fredericksburg Convention Center in Virginia, and you just click events and you scroll down, you'll see the Mid Atlantic Fantasy Convention. If you click there, it's it takes you right to that page where there's vendors and tickets. I can actually send it to you if you want to attach
Yeah.
it in the
Yes,
description of the
I'll
video.
100%. Whatever.
Um,
Yeah, I'll have that links all in my show notes for
but
you
I also
guys to
have
get.
it on my website. It's prallencreative.com. And up at the top, it says Mid-Atlantic Fantasy Convention. If you click there, it takes you to the event link and the vendor applications.
Perfect. Okay, I will have all that stuff in the notes. I just want to bring up one last subject before
Sure.
we end up. Can we have a conversation about your favorite character?
My favorite character.
Your favorite fictional character? You put Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah.
And can we just talk about the wonderfulness of Samwise Gamgee?
Oh, he's
Because
so good.
I love him. I don't know if you saw my interview with Tony T from Florida. He said the hero of Lord of the Rings was Frodo, and I vehemently disagreed with him. And so I'm calling Tony out because I feel like when you put Samwise, I was like, okay, he knows the truth. Sam is the hero.
Well,
He's the guy. What about Sam do you love, and why is he your favorite character?
so if you don't know about the background of who Sam is, see, when Tolkien was in World War I, he had an NCO, a non-commissioned officer, a sergeant, that was his aide, and his name was Sam. And Sam took care of him when he was shell-shocked. And if you haven't seen the Tolkien biopic, the movie, shucks, who's in it? I forget his name. It's wonderful, but it gives you a snapshot of who Sam is. Sam, the NCO, the sergeant in real life, took care of Tolkien during the war, made sure he got fed, made sure he did all that. And my time in the military, the majority of my time was as a platoon sergeant. And one of the jobs as a platoon sergeant is not only do I have to take care of my soldiers, but I also have to take care of the platoon leader, the lieutenant. And when I read The Lord of the Rings in high school, against my will at that time, because it was for class, but it did something to me, and it helped me to learn to serve outside of myself, whether it be a superior or any of my soldiers, to make sure they had everything they needed and that they were taken care of. So reading Sam in the book, and then as I'm going through my training as a pastor, and in my own research and writing, reading the letters of Tolkien that said that Sam was the chief hero of all of Middle Earth. Because of that, it kind of broke my heart. And then in Peter Jackson's movie, at the end, once they've destroyed the ring, and Sam sits up on the rock, and he says something, but it's more of a prayer. He says, if there was any woman I would marry, it would be Rosie Cotton. And for me, that prayer was answered, because he got to go back and he got to marry Rosie Cotton, have children, and to live a life. And it's because he served Frodo that he got that prayer answered. And during that time, he always kept hope alive. Even when he would say things like, I don't think we're going to make it back. There was still hope in it, because he knew what they were going to do. It's the Peter Jackson movie, the monologue, where he says there's some good in this world and it's worth fighting for. That's Sam.
Yeah. That's
Sam. And that's how I try to live my life, by serving, like Sam. So when people say stuff like, oh, I want to be like Aragorn, or I want to live a life like Faramir or like Boromir, and I'm like, if you're not striving to be like the simple gardener Sam, you're not even trying. You're going the wrong direction. Samwise Gamgee is special, and I got to tell Sean Astin that, and that was a special moment.
When did you get to meet Sean?
I've actually met Sean a couple times. He actually loves Fredericksburg, Virginia. So trying to get him to come to the convention is my ultimate goal. But he was one of the first sponsors for the Marine Corps half marathon that we have here in Fredericksburg, which is a sister race to the Marine Corps marathon in DC. And so he was one of the first financiers of it, and he was one of the first competitors in it. So, because I don't know if you noticed this, I mean, he does like marathons, half marathons. You wouldn't think of looking at him because he doesn't look like a physical specimen, but he's an animal when it comes to you know, doing the things that he does as far as working out and things. But he I got to actually have a conversation with him at AwesomeCon in DC, where I got his autograph and we were talking, and my daughters were with me. He was very wonderful man. My daughter was dressed up as one daughter was dressed up as Elle from Stranger Things, and one of them was dressed up as Black
Potato.
Widow.
Okay.
Yeah, potato. And then the other one was dressed up as Captain Britain.
Nice.
And because we also got to meet Haley Atwell, and she signed I made a Captain Britain shield from foam, and she signed it, which was a highlight. But then my daughters were like, my dad loves Samwise Gamgee. And I was like, oh, you don't have to do that. He was like, so he spent a few extra minutes talking to me about what it meant for him to do it, because he didn't read the books until he was in the movie. He said, I didn't realize how important a character he was until after reading the letters from Tolkien and things of that nature. And I was like, no, you don't understand how big a deal it is that you portrayed him the way you did. I was like, it was meaningful and purposeful. And then we met him a couple other times when we've gone and taken pictures at the conventions and stuff like that. Frodo, got to meet him. The only of the hobbits I have not met yet is Dominic Monaghan, and he never comes to DC. I need him to sign this poster.
Kansas City for Planet Comic-Con. I think they're having a whole Hobbit crew coming out.
Nice. I think the closest he's coming to DC this year is Boston. So we're gonna try and go up there for my birthday, because there's gonna be like, I think Liv Tyler's gonna be there, David Wenham's gonna be there.
Oh, nice.
I would love to meet Faramir.
Yeah.
So I have to get Dominic Monaghan's autograph, and I'll have this guy did a custom poster of like a Sunday Evening Post, but it's like in Shire language, and it's like the 4 hobbits that are running through Farmer Maggot's farm, and I got all their autographs on it except for his, so he's the holdout. So I got to get him.
Complete the set.
And then let's see, John Rhys Davies. If you ever get a chance to meet that gentleman,
he was at Planet last year, and that guy is. I didn't meet him in person because I spent my money on David Tennant.
That's all right.
but I, which is it was well worth it. But like, he had many, like, you can come in the large panel room and hear him speak. And he was such a character. He was cracking me up. Like, my parents came with me to that convention, and they were like, this guy's great. I'm like, we loved him. We were like,
he's fantastic.
You're like way more special off the stage than on the stage,
He is like, he's a great actor, but just as a human being, talking to him, he is fantastic. And his line took so long to get through to take a photo with him because he talked to everybody.
I'm sure.
He talked to all 3 of my daughters. He asked them what they were reading. He said, movies are wonderful, but make sure you're reading. And, and then, so I asked him a question about animated Pilgrim's Progress, where he plays evangelist. And I was like, I want to tell you, you did this character, the evangelist. And I was like, you did a fantastic job. He was like, I haven't seen the finished product. I was like, it's 2 years old. He's like, is it really good? I was like, yes, sir. He was like, he looks over at his assistant. He says, find this and rent it. I want to watch it. And
I can't believe he hadn't seen his own work. That's crazy.
Hadn't seen it. So like he knew what he was voice acting for, because he's got the book. He's got like an original book. Because he was telling me, he was like, I have like a first edition, and I was like, wow, that's like a big deal.
Nice.
And I was like, well,
Bunyan
you'll like the
original.
whole thing. But yeah, just a great human being.
Really nice when, sometimes meeting celebrities can be interesting because people are there to see them and for them to engage with their audience and with their
Yeah.
fans in a meaningful way where they see them and
Oh yeah.
the fan feels like they were seen by them is so big. And I just equate that even further
Nobody
back to
does it
like
better than those guys. The Lord of the Rings cast. Nobody does it better than them.
they're just it's just great. David Tennant was the same. You felt like he
Okay.
actually cared and just loved people. And I love that because in a weird twist to turn it back to Christ, it's like we so desperately want to be known by
Oh yeah.
someone that loves us unconditionally or just like has that, hey, I know you. And I don't know, I speak more for me. I feel that deeply. Like
Yeah.
I want to be known, but not in like, oh, everyone knows Jess, but like a deep like understanding of who I am, and I know
Right.
that that's in Christ. And like for a brief moment when you have that interaction with people where they recognize or they like you I don't know if souls meeting or whatever it is, but it's like
Right.
this thing that happens that you're like you get that little bit of I don't know, I guess it's love is what it is, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
like
Of course.
it's care and it's love that someone feels for someone. So I
Absolutely.
I think I think we're just trying to put in a secular way with celebrities that kind of same feeling.
Yeah.
And I love
Oh,
it when they're
completely.
lovely because it just makes it so much more meaningful and it
It
makes
does.
us like want to watch their stuff more and
Yeah.
support them
You
more. And
appreciate them and their work more. Absolutely.
exactly, exactly.
Absolutely.
Well, Patrick, we're going to come to an end here. Is there anything you would like to leave my audience with? Any lasting
Yes.
thoughts or
Absolutely.
or
So
scripture, whatever you got? We'll
I'm gonna
take it.
leave you with a scripture. I gotta take my glasses off because I'm in like studio lighting here, but let me take my glasses off for this. Galatians 2, starting in verse 17. A lot of folks just look at Galatians 2:20, and it's like, oh yeah, I got to remember that verse and I do. It's my go-to verse, but I like to add the context of it. And Paul says, but if any, starting in verse 17, but if in our endeavor to be justified in Christ, we too were found to be sinners, is Christ then a servant of sin? Certainly not. For if I rebuild what I tore down, I prove myself to be a transgressor. For through the law I died to the law, so that I might live to God. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. In the life I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not nullify the grace of God, for if righteousness were through the law, then Christ died for no purpose. And I don't like the phrase life verse because in a few weeks you might be like, oh, that's my
It'll
new life
change.
verse. You know,
Yeah,
it
it
changes like the
changes
weather
daily.
as you read and understand. But this is definitely a go-to verse for me because it helps me to remember that it's not, no matter what I'm doing in life, that I'm doing it because Christ died for me and included me in that. When we become a Christian and a follower of Christ, then his death becomes our death. And we're, as Paul said, dead to the law. So we're free from the law. So that we can do all things for Christ now. And we can bring him glory in areas, even, whether it be in writing or cosplay or, preaching the gospel from church or doing apologetics work or a convention. But then if we choose to do things for Christ, or if we choose to do things and we remember this verse that it's his life that we're living now, and it makes us to want to do it better, to do our utmost for his highest. And I think with this convention, when I first started thinking about doing it, and I was like, no, it can't be a small convention. It's got to be impactful from get-go. So my wife often jokes, she's like, this thing is gonna bleed us dry. And I'm like, it's really not. I'm telling you, it's not. I was like, if we're doing it for the king,
Yep.
he's gonna keep filling the cup. So
Yep.
but
Exactly.
it's just one of those things that especially one of the verses that when folks ask me, what verse speaks to you most, it's that one. A lot of folks say John 3:16, but that one's good. I love that one. I'm preaching on that one not this Sunday, but next Sunday. But it's it's this verse where Paul, who once we realize who Paul was, and
Yeah.
he's saying this, it's it's a huge sacrifice for him to say this, and he has realized it. And I wish more Christians would realize it and live based off of that.
Yeah, that's so good. Oh, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, you're
So
welcome,
nice
Jeff.
getting to chat with you. And I feel like we could chat more about all the things,
Oh, I'm sure
but
we could.
but I appreciate you coming on. And guys, for any of the information, website that Patrick talked about, I'll have that all in the show notes for you to get easily clickable items to get to them. If you want to be a vendor or whatever to support the Mid-Atlantic Fantasy Convention, we'll just have all that readily available for you. So thank you guys for tuning in today. Remember to be blessed, know who you are in Christ, and take ground for the kingdom. Till next time, guys. Bye.